All right, guys, jam-packed episode of 4 Verts today. Brandon Aiyuk latest, plus Amari Cooper chiming in on social media. We're going to get to all that in just a second. But listen, we just crossed 1,300 subscribers, trying to get to 1,400 and hopefully 2,000 sooner rather than later. If you want free and daily NFL college football coverage, this is the channel for you. Help us out. Join the family. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right, Brandon Aiyuk, Kyle Shanahan reportedly meeting earlier this week. That's according to Jordan Schultz, who reported that they had a candid and open talk. And Schultz reports that there could be some renewed optimism that a deal between Aiyuk and the 49ers could get done, which I've said all along. If you're the 49ers, I get not wanting to majorly overpay, but you're also in a critical year as you chase the Super Bowl. Losing Brandon Aiyuk doesn't really help you do that unless you get a big-time player back in a trade. So certainly trying to work something out, I think, would make the most sense for both sides. Now, Aiyuk responded on Instagram to like an aggregator who aggregated this report and said, "The Niners be in the media every day, LOL. It's two options out there. Pick one and stop, drop, and report. Simple." In other words, he's saying the Niners are controlling the narrative. They're leaking all the stories about the latest negotiation talking points. And who knows? I'm sure they're doing some of that, certainly. They're probably the ones who leaked Amari Cooper's name as a potential trade target to get back for Aiyuk in discussions with the Browns. We'll get to Cooper in a minute. Now, when Aiyuk says there's two options out there, pick one and stop dropping reports, it's simple. I do think it's simple what the two reports are. Number one, the 49ers pay more money and give Brandon Aiyuk a level of a contract that he wants. The reported offer they've made is $26 million per year. Not sure what the guarantees are. I would guess you got to get him at least to $28 million and give him proper guarantees. Or you trade him to the Steelers, the other team that he wants to go to. He didn't want to go to New England, even though they reportedly offered $32 million per year, which, by the way, how down bad are the Patriots as a franchise right now that they couldn't even swoon Aiyuk for $32 million because the Niners had a trade in place in New England, but if Aiyuk wasn't going to commit to an extension, they obviously can't trade for him. But then, two, he doesn't want Cleveland either. Let's talk about that for just a second. The Browns reported offer from Matt Mayoko, Bay Area guy who's covered the Niners for a while, was a second-round pick, a fifth-round pick, and Amari Cooper. My initial reaction to that is the 49ers are probably pissed that Aiyuk wasn't willing going to Cleveland, right? That's a pretty damn good deal. You get a premium pick in the second round, top 50, 55-ish pick, depending on the type of year Cleveland has. You get a fifth, but more importantly, you get a replacement for Aiyuk and Amari Cooper, who, from a route running standpoint, I think is in a similar tier as Aiyuk, two of the better route runners in the NFL. Now, he's older. He's not going to be as willing of a blocker, but that's a pretty good return if you can't work it out with Aiyuk. Maybe you get 85 to 90% of the player back, plus a premium pick and an extra pick. If you're the Niners, you're like, yeah, I'll take that deal to just move on from all this, but Aiyuk wouldn't commit to an extension with Cleveland, so that's off the table. Because, again, any team that wants to trade for Aiyuk, they're not going to do it without him committing to an extension. So Patriots are out because even though a trade's in place, they're not going to do it without Aiyuk's camp guaranteeing an extension. Cleveland's out because if they can't get him to commit to an extension, they're just going to take that deal off the table. So it truly is those two options for Brandon Aiyuk of, can you get more out of the 49ers, or do the Steelers end up offering more in a trade and getting him via a trade? I think that's where things stand right now. Now, coming up in a second, Amari Cooper weighs in on his name being leaked publicly in a potential trade to the Niners. Again, that appears to be dead at this point because Aiyuk doesn't want to commit to signing there, but Cooper had some pretty funny remarks, at least in my opinion, in that regard. I do want to hit this first. Mayoko also reported that the 49ers want a second and third from Pittsburgh as part of a deal. Now, I got to think the 49ers would at least want some player compensation back. If I'm John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and we've talked about this, this is a win now, try to do everything you can to get the Super Bowl this year. If I can't get a premium player back for Brandon Aiyuk, I don't want to trade him. If I have to, then I better get a first-round pick back. A second and a third, I got to think getting a player back in that deal has to be part of that. Cleveland offered a 2, a 5, and Cooper. Now, the Steelers don't have a receiver they can offer of Cooper's regard because they're not going to trade George Pickens. But can you get a 2 and a 3 and Calvin Austin plus maybe an extra pick or another role player? Maybe you throw James Daniels in there as well. I don't think the Steelers are going to trade one of their pass rushers, but I do want to make it clear, Mayoko said as part of a deal, not the full deal. Like, if you're the Steelers and Aiyuk's on the table for a 2 and a 3, you should run that deal to the podium if you're hell-bent on getting a receiver for your offense because you don't have to give up a first, you don't have to give up a premium player. Like, if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm making that deal right now. But I got to think there's more to that, and the phrasing's important, again, as part of a deal is what Mayoko said in his report. So I would have to think some kind of player compensation would be involved in there as well for San Francisco to consider it. So look, the 49ers, again, they need more than picks in a trade. Now, maybe if it got up to the, September or Labor Day, they would take a pick-centric trade if a first was included. But you're not trading Aiyuk for a second-round pick plus something else, in my opinion, in early mid-August still. Like, there's still a lot of time here. Like, I'm not pulling the trigger on that deal if I'm San Francisco. So, does a third team get involved? Which could that be a possibility where they do take like a 2 and a 3 from Pittsburgh, but maybe a third team gets involved and ships San Francisco a wide receiver as well? Or you got to get a key player from Pittsburgh. Do they change their mind on Alex Highsmith? Can you get James Daniels and Calvin Austin? I don't think either of those guys are high-level players, but they would both play a role at least. Daniels would be an upgrade at guard. Could you get Troy Faltanu? He just banged up his knee a little bit, but a first-round offensive lineman plus a second- or third-round pick, that would intrigue me to beef up the offensive line outside of Trent Williams. So we'll see how that goes. Now, as far as Amari Cooper goes, I teased it earlier that he weighed in on all this. He went to Instagram after seeing these reports that the Browns offered Cooper in a trade, and he said, LOL, I wouldn't mind. That got me to chuckle. You know why? Because no shit he wouldn't mind. Now, there were reports that when he was in Oakland early in his career, he didn't love living out there in the Bay Area. Now, Oakland, San Francisco, two different cities, so that could play a role. He's also older now. Maybe he views it differently in terms of lifestyle. Plus, Cleveland, let's be honest. Bay Area or Cleveland, I'll go to the Bay Area. But I think he also looks at this and is like, I wouldn't mind going to San Francisco. They've been knocking on the door of playing for a Super Bowl, and while we're a good team here in Cleveland, Deshaun Watson hadn't been that good. Get to him in a second as well. The Browns got to be pissed that this leaked. His name getting leaked in a deal that isn't going to happen unless there's a last-minute change for Aiyuk going to Cleveland. Cleveland can't be happy because now they have to sit down and talk to Amari Cooper and either completely deny that report or they have to explain why they considered it. You never want a key player being unhappy. And two, they're probably unhappy too because like, oh wait, he'd be cool with leaving? So that's not ideal for Cleveland, who's also in a pivotal year just like San Francisco. And just to wrap things up from the Browns standpoint, there's a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson this year. I think right now, as we sit here on August 10th, there is no player in the NFL under more pressure than Deshaun Watson. Signed the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history at $230 million. The Browns took that risk despite all the off-the-field shenanigans that he was accused of down in Houston. And he's done nothing. His first year with Cleveland, he only played in 4 games, did not look good after the suspension. Last year, he played one good half of football against Baltimore and 7-8 games, then was out for the season with a shoulder injury before Joe Flacco off the couch came in and looked better. Like, Watson's got to play better this year because if he does, this contract and trade already looks like a disaster for Cleveland, but if he can't improve, you're talking about one of the worst trades in NFL history. And the Browns have a Super Bowl caliber roster, I think. That defense is loaded. They're talented on offense. Offensive line is really good. But if you don't have the quarterback, it doesn't matter. And Deshaun Watson, at this point is 4 years removed from high-level football. 2020, he had a really good year. 21 didn't play, suspended most of 22, played one half of football last year, good half of football last year, and about 8 games total, and then was out for the season with an injury. It's a long time. It's a massive year for Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, no question about it. We'll continue to monitor this story as long as Brandon Aiyuk remains a 49er and no deal is done. It's a top storyline in NFL circles. Also, a lot of preseason action. I think on Monday, I'm going to do NFL preseason week 1's takeaways and reactions. So if you're looking for that, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. We will continue to rock out content here on 4 Verts.